Good evening, and thank you for your time in being a part of this training. My name is Jasmine Thomas, and I'll be your speaker for this evening. In today's training, I'll be speaking to you about the attachment theory and how attachment theory will benefit you. Though this is only an outline of the theory because I want to be brief, once you finish this training, you'll be very knowledgeable about this theory and how you can use it in your day-to-day life. Let's begin. John Bowlby is known as the father of attachment theory and describes the attachment theory as being the lasting connection between a caregiver and a child and the psychological connection amongst them. John Bowlby first formatted this theory, and later Mary Ainsworth expanded on the styles of attachment, which we'll go on talk about later on in this video. John Bowlby had three phases of the attachment theory. The first phase was protest. At this stage, the child is distressed of separation and the child begins to act out and cry out loud. The second is despair. We call this the quiet stage. The child becomes very withdrawn from the surroundings and the environment, and then crying may occur. And lastly, we have detachment, where a child is more interested in the environment and not interested in the caregiver. The attachment theory is stated to be a human requirement in building relationships with people. So as humans, we are required to build bonds and form relationships. In order to successfully achieve this theory, the goal of attachment theory is illustrated as a newborn having a secure attachment to their caregiver. This theory also has stages. The first stage is the beginning months until 6 months of a child's life, and at this time the attachment is more general despite the recognition of the mother. The comforting actions are the secure base. Within 6 months is the time that a child has stranger anxiety, and to immerse, signaling that the baby is clearly recognizing who mommy is and who is not mommy. 6 months to 3 years, it still needs to be maintaining a close proximity, but can tolerate separation for a short period of time. And long separation can be traumatic, especially if the child is not able to secure that attachment with another figure. And for 3 years, the child is able to be tolerant and knowing that though mom or dad or the caregiver is separated, that mom or dad or the caregiver will return. Now we're going to speak about the tenets of the attachment theory. The tenets are that it provides a safe haven, it offers a secure base, and it involves working models of self and others. Attachment theory provides a thorough view of the importance in forming bonds and relationships with people. With this understanding, the attachment theory is very essential, and it is also important to recognize the styles associated with this theory. As we spoke about earlier, Mary Ainsworth described 4 attachment styles in attachment theory. The first one being secure attachment, the second one being anxious ambivalent attachment, the third one disorganized attachment, and the fourth one avoidant attachment. The level of care and attention given to their caregiver plays a huge role in a child's life in the way that they form relationships with people. Today we're going to use the example of a tightrope walker's pole. And like a tightrope walker's pole, a relationship with the child is quite similar. If a child experiences little to no interaction or relationship with their caregiver, this can hinder the child's personality and attachment skills, swaying the tightrope pole one way or another. But if the child has a strong attachment and bond with the caregiver, the pole will remain steady, just as a tightrope walker's pole would like to be. More importantly, in extreme cases, when the child has no type of attachment or bond with their caregiver whatsoever, the pole can translate in both ways, causing the pole to break. Just like a tightrope walker's pole, the ability to maintain a steady relationship with the child is important and benefit in a child's life. When the attachment and bond is level, this is known as secure attachment. When it sways one way, this is known as ambivalent attachment. when it sways the opposite way. This is known as avoidant attachment. In the swing in both, causing the pole to break, this is known as disorganized attachment. Secure attachment is the steadiness. It's seen when a child shows signs of distress when the caregiver leaves, but is able to compose themselves knowing that the caregiver will return. At this stage, the child feels protected and dependent. Ambivalent attachment, which is the swaying of one way, a child will avoid or ignore caregivers, showing little to no emotion when the caregiver departs or returns. A third one is avoidant attachment, which is the swaying in the opposite direction. At this stage, the child tends to be emotionally unavailable and unresponsive to the caregiver due to the lack of attention. In return, the caregiver disregards the child's needs and attentions as well. And lastly, the causing of the swing both ways in order to break. This is known as disorganized attachment. And at this stage, the child is distressed and completely disassociated with themselves, their environment, and their caregivers. And this is what we want to avoid most likely. Most of the individuals have encountered many of these styles, which have influenced their relationships and bonds with individuals in later years, according to Locke 2008. Additionally, research has shown how the attachment theory has been an important process in the development and growth stages of individuals' life. This is just one of the many examples of how attachment theory may be used in your life. If you are unsure of your attachment style with your caregiver or your child, take a few days and watch your behavior throughout your interactions with people. This will allow you to determine where you are on the tightrope, whether you are secure in having a secure attachment, having an ambivalent attachment, an avoidant attachment, or a disorganized attachment. Now we will speak about the interventions of attachment theory. Though a social worker may experience strong emotions, it is important that the social worker is knowledgeable of the concepts of transference and countertransference when taking place in these relationships. As a social worker, more emphasis on a therapeutic relationship should be sustained and developed to reflect the importance of how attachment is important in everybody's life. The social worker needs to explore clients' interpersonal histories and developmental milestones. The social worker then can provide a holding environment but establish limits. And in this process, a social worker can make sure that the parent or caregiver is knowledgeable about what exactly a holding environment is. And this can be used through practicing holding therapy, which can be soothing, having the child lay on your lap, or things of that sort. Social worker must pay attention to the subjective experiences and the personal meanings of the client. Respecting the uniqueness of the client is very important. The point is that for people who are fundamentally or having problems in their interpersonal relationships, the ability to recognize that the aspects that they need to work on are important in order to build relationships and bonds with individuals. The hope is that at the end of therapy or the intervention with families or individuals, that the client is helped in resolving their conflict with their attachment. Finally, while attachment theory has a lot of important insights that have been given to us today, just like any other theory, it has limitations. The first limitation is that the attachment theory has not developed a widely applicable set of interventions based on current diagnostic categories. However, there are a number of important developments in attachment-based interventions which are being evaluated today. The last one, Bowlby thought that maternal deprivation in the early years had lifelong effects, but later research showed that this was incorrect. There was enormous variation of children's responses to adversity, with some showing high levels of resilience, but there can be strengthening of attachment in later life, even if there is a disruption in the attachment in early childhood. Because of the limitations of attachment theory, it is important to consider alternatives for disrupting and disturbing behaviors when assessing a child's need and planning interventions. Attempting to diagnose attachment styles in children or categorizing them into attachment styles based on observation of behavior is generally seen as unuseful. What is useful though is about the attachment theory is that it helps us to understand why children may be behaving in certain ways and therefore providing ideas on how we can help. Now that you have learned the main areas of attachment theory, we will begin with practicing how to use this theory in our role play. Let's begin. Come in. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. What's your name?
Delilah.
Delilah, I'm Jasmine. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So what brings you in today?
Well, I'm having troubles with my daughter and interacting with each other.
Okay, and so it sounds like you're having problems with interaction. And so before we begin with you telling me what's going on, I do want to go over informed consent. Do you know what that is?
No.
Okay, so informed consent just means that whatever is stated in this room stays in this room unless you're trying to do harm to yourself or others. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, so you'll fill out some paperwork after we have our therapy. Is that okay?
That sounds good.
Okay, and so tell me a little bit about you and your daughter.
My daughter's name is Kelly.
Okay.
She is 2 years old. We don't have a lot of interaction. One, because I work 2 jobs, and second of all, my sister watches her and picks her up from school. So whenever I do get home, she's already in bed, and I really don't get to talk to her that much.
Okay, so it seems like y'all are having a lot of issues with the interaction between you two because you don't have time.
Yes.
And so, can you explain to me how often are you away from Kelly?
I work Monday through Friday,
Okay.
and of course that's when she has school. However, on the weekends she has extracurricular activities that if I get called into work, I cannot make.
Okay. So majority of the time she is at school or with your sister, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and so explain to me what you've been seeing as far as behavior wise with Kelly.
Whenever we do have a little bit of time together, she's ignoring me, not wanting to spend time with me. She goes in the other room and plays with her toys. However, when I try to go in there and play with her and her toys, she doesn't want. She gets mad and frustrated.
Okay, and so, that sounds like that's very strenuous. And so it seems like Kelly does not want, it's not necessarily that she doesn't want interaction with you, but maybe she's not used to having interaction with you. And so when you are trying to be, involved, she doesn't know how to take it. Could you
agree?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So it seems like you are trying. And so one thing I do like to do with my parents is try to figure out if you know or recognize your strengths and weaknesses. So do you believe that you have any strengths and weaknesses? And if so, what are those?
Yes, I do feel like I have both strengths and weaknesses, of course.
Okay.
I feel like my strengths would be a provider for my daughter and I. For a weakness, however, it's not interacting with my daughter enough because I work all the time and provide.
Okay, and so I'm glad that you are able to determine those weaknesses and strengths because some parents don't believe that they have either, and so it's good that you know. And so what I want to do is first explain, so you stated that you don't have much interaction at all.
Right.
And so when you do have interaction, she doesn't want to be bothered. And so how have you tried to alter that? Like, have you tried to figure out how you can make time or interaction with Kelly?
Not off the top of my head. Like, of course I've tried with trying to like spend time with her and play with her toys with her and all that, but it doesn't work.
Okay, and so one thing that we enforce here is a thing called the holding environment. Have you heard of that?
No.
Okay, and so what the holding environment is it's not necessarily holding the child, but it's just a form of showing attachment and just a bond in a relationship with your child. And so what we do here at our clinic is ensure that parents who are having trouble with that holding environment, we have what is called holding therapy. Okay. And you and Kelly can attend, and it's a one-on-one type of basis, and the therapist ensures that you are able to learn techniques such as if Kelly is tired, you can lay Kelly across your lap and soothe her until she goes to sleep. That's
Okay.
one type of therapy. Or if Kelly's sad, you can have her under your arm and just make sure that she's feeling good. You know, things of that sort is under holding therapy.
Right.
And so those are some of the things you might want to focus on. So if you see that Kelly is frustrated or doesn't want to play, bring Kelly in and talk to her or see what's going on in her life. And with that, that's another form of holding therapy.
Okay. So just soothing and keeping her calm.
Yeah, and just making sure that she knows that you're there and just having that interaction and that bond and that closeness.
Okay.
And that will help with the attachment. And so with that, we want to make sure that you are able to learn that and have that interaction as well as build on it. And so because Kelly is still at a young age, that would be great for both of y'all to attend. Would you consider that?
Yes.
Okay, and so also with our agency, we like to give our parents pamphlets. And with this pamphlet, it pretty much tells from ages, it breaks up the ages, and it tells the parents what's age appropriate for your child, and as far as attachments and interactions that you can do with your child. And this is really helpful for parents that don't have that interaction because it gives you step-by-step information on how you can begin that process.
Okay.
And so you can take this actually home and you can start interacting and start with those things, and that will help you and Kelly's relationship.
Awesome. Thank you.
And you're welcome. And so another option that I wanted to give was, have you reached out to any other agencies as far as classes or parenting classes or anything that would help with the interaction amongst you and Kelly?
I was hoping that coming to this session would help me bring me out of those resources.
Okay, so great. So that's good because we do have a class that we provide here for parenting, and you can either choose to go to the course that is just with the parents and all of you are talking about, techniques and stuff, or you can go to or you can go to the other one that includes the child and it just teaches you techniques that you can do with the child, and it also helps the child in determining that, this is mommy, and though mommy doesn't have time, mommy is still here, and mommy is still mommy. And so we can definitely pair you with that class as well, and they're very flexible, so I know that you work,
Right.
and so they can alter and be flexible with your schedule.
Great.
Okay, and so is there any other issues that you might want to address, or is there any other suggestions that you were looking for from here?
Not much. Just the attachment theory and the attachment of me and my daughter.
Okay, and so as we do still have these interactions, we will begin to start finishing up on stages, and we'll get more in depth of the attachment. But for right now, because there is no interaction, we don't want you to, just go home and push that on to the child and not
Right.
knowing. And so with this booklet, it will definitely just look under twos. It will definitely give you a breakdown on the beginning process of the attachment with your child. And so also I want to give you a test. And so with going to the classes and doing the holding therapy as well as seeing me, I want to ensure that when you're home and you are having interaction with Kelly, that you are practicing these skills. And so when you do have those interactions with Kelly, just keep a little note tablet or booklet beside you that you're able to write down her behaviors. And no, we don't think that the behaviors will be, right away, oh, thank you, Mom. But we do want to see a progress in
Right.
the behavior. And so hoping that that attachment begins to form. Is
Okay.
that okay?
That sounds good.
Okay, and so I will see you next week, and you can set up an appointment at the front desk as well as sign your informed consent form. Is that okay?
That sounds good.
All right, we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now that you've gained knowledge and put your skills to practice in a role play, we will speak on our reflection. We will speak on the strengths and weaknesses of this theory and of my performance, and we will close. First, the strengths of this theory. Though this theory has many strengths, we'll only elaborate on a few. First, the theory explains development in social relationships. It enables prediction about subsequent social relationships, and it provides information about specific interventions that you can improve social functioning. Weaknesses of this theory, like many, is that it's only cross-cultural research that has been conducted. and that it does not predict behavior in cultures where children have more than one primary caregiver. Now to speak on the performance of me in part one. I do believe that I was very knowledgeable and I felt that I gave enough information for the basics on attachment theory. Though we could elaborate on so many areas of attachment in attachment theory and how we can relate it to our lives, I felt like it was important that if only one thing stuck with them, that I was at least doing my job. I felt that also putting an example of the tightrope walker's pole was another way for remembering the types of styles of attachment. I also felt that, though, like I said, it was a lot of information, giving examples, providing the knowledge, and then interaction in the role play was very important in hoping that trainees developed or were able to remember something out of this training. My performance in part two, as a therapist, I was nervous, but I do feel like the client got the information that she needed. I also made sure that I used the intervention models that were given with attachment theory. What was very important for me was to ensure that that parent was able to, before they left my office, they were knowledgeable about how important it is to have an attachment with your child, regardless that the child is over age of maybe 6 months or a newborn. The child is still developing, and so that child will still be able to still maintain a secure attachment with their mom or with any caregiver at any stage in their life. And just as it stated in my training, one of the limitations was that John Bowlby felt that if there was no attachment at the beginning or the start of that child's life, that attachment could not happen, which was incorrect. Attachment can form at any time in a child's life. It's just the willingness for that caregiver and child to want that interaction. So I felt like my strengths were that just knowing the information and being in talking smoothly and not trying to get my words tangled up. A few weaknesses that I do have, like usual, is just making sure that I knew the information. I use my hands and I had to walk around a lot because if I got nervous or I stopped, I would sit here and completely forget what I was talking about. I'm trying to do better with calming my nerves and knowing that though this is a presentation, there's plenty more that I'll have to get in front of people and speak about. So it's important that I'm comfortable, I'm relaxed, and I know what I'm talking about. Concluding, I would like to thank you for watching my training module, and I hope that you've learned so much about the attachment theory just as I have, and I hope to see you in many more trainings. Thank you.